We're just now hearing some leaks about the pricing for the iPhone 12 lineup. This comes from John Prosser, who's claiming these are the same sources that gave him the iPhone SE release date, which, of course, weeks before it actually happened, he got correct. And it's going to be really easy when you see these prices to get excited and get pumped and get just really invested in, wow, Apple's going to make some great value iPhones this year. But I'm here to just tell you to remain skeptical and understand that things could change in the next 5 months before they unveil it. And at the same time, also, yeah, I really hope these are right. I'm already getting excited, so it better actually happen. Let's begin. Alright, so when John unveiled these prices, he was kind of treating the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max like they were in the norm, you know? $1,000 for the 12 Pro and $1,100 for the 12 Pro Max. But I say that's not normal at all, and I'll tell you why. It's because Apple has never introduced a new design with new screen sizes and new form factors that did not come with a price jump. So we're getting all kinds of upgrades with the Pro lineup this year, right? We're getting 5G support, which who cares? We're getting the first 5nm CPU in a smartphone, the A14 chip. We're getting LiDAR attached to the back, but that didn't increase the price of the iPad Pro. So LiDAR is probably not that expensive, but there's also a decent amount of rumors that 120 Hz could be coming to the Pro iPhones. It's still up in the air. Don't really consider that confirmed at this point, but the fact that we're getting larger displays for both Pro iPhones, keep in mind, the ones we sell right now, those are 5.8 inches and 6.5 inches. This is 6.1 inches and 6.7, so bigger screens. If you go back in the past and look at the times Apple's introduced new screen sizes at new form factors and kept the prices the same, doesn't happen. Almost the only time prices stay the same is when the display doesn't change and the design fundamentally stays for the most part the same. That's when prices don't go up. So the idea that the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max are getting all of these design changes, like the smaller notch, the squared off edges, all of the internal component boosts, possibly display component boosts, and they're also gonna stay the same price, that's really exciting. And I think that would make them incredibly competitive against Androids this year, especially if we have the S20 starting at $1,000 and the S20 Ultra at $1,400, the OnePlus 8 Pro being at $900. For only $100 more, you'll be able to get an iPhone that has A14 chip, Face ID, way better resale value, way more years of support, but also possibly ProMotion, a new design, stainless steel brackets, and I don't know, that would be incredibly competitively priced in my opinion, because for the longest time, I've assumed that the Pro iPhones with all these changes they're getting this year have to get $100 more expensive. There's just no way Apple would charge $1,000 for a phone with all of those specs and also charge $1,000 for the Pro stand. You know, is this the same Apple we're talking about here? But the more interesting details he gave were about the non-Pro iPhones, the iPhone 12, which will be coming in two sizes, a 5.4-inch model, which is supposed to be even smaller than the footprint of the iPhone SE, and a 6.1-inch model, both of which will be rocking OLED, okay? So no liquid retinas, no LCDs this year. These, of course, would be sticking with standard 60 Hz. There's no debate there, but they would still have 5G support. They would still get the A14 chip, and he's saying 5.4-inch model starting at $650, and the 6.1-inch model will start at $750, which is the same price that Apple introduced the iPhone XR at in 2018. So there's reasons I think we should remain skeptical. But first off, let's just get excited for a second. I'll allow it as the dream crusher on YouTube a lot of the time. Let's just acknowledge the fact that the iPhone 12 lineup would start $50 cheaper than the iPhone 11 lineup, even with all of these design changes and smaller notch, squared off edges, 5nm chip. They would start $50 cheaper than last year. Like, that would be insane, but the skeptic inside of me just thinks these are probably the generous estimates, and Apple likely has not finalized a price yet because it is kind of early in the year. I know there were a lot of leaks before the iPhone XS and XR came out, and a lot of people thought the prices were going to be lower than they actually were. I mean, there were people who thought the regular XS was going to be $900 and the XS Max was going to be $1,000. We were $100 off on that prediction. So early in the year pricing has been known to be wrong, and a lot of people thought the iPhone XR would start at $700 and it actually costs $750. So general ballpark I think is fairly accurate, but if the exact numbers end up being correct, I think these are incredibly competitive smartphones that Apple's suddenly going to start looking like more of the budget option than everybody else this year. So OnePlus and Samsung, you're now the overpriced flagships, and Apple's trying to make something for the rest of us, which would be kind of a funny funny trick to play on the smartphone market, but I also think we should consider where are the corners being cut, okay? If they're lowering prices and keeping iPhones with this many design changes this affordable, where are we not going to see upgrades that we want to see? So for one, I think we should probably assume if these prices are correct, maybe 64 gig standard is going to stay the same. I know for the longest time we've been asking for Apple to make 128 gigs the default storage option for iPhone lines, so that's just what you get out of the box. But if prices are staying this low slash kinda dropping, that would make sense as something to what Apple would kind of cheap out on and say, yeah, we're trying to save money, we're trying to cut costs, we don't care if the techies on YouTube get upset, we just need the prices to be lower so our shareholders are happy. So yeah, 64 gig standard across the whole lineup. I know there's a lot of people that have pitched the idea that the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max, you'll get 128 gigs by default, but then the regular 12s, they'll get 64 gigs by default, which, I mean, kind of makes sense. I sort of see why you would think that way, but history doesn't support that idea very well, because if we look back at other iPhone lineups in the past, there has never been a time where they let one iPhone start with a higher storage configuration than another. iPhone 7 Plus, same storage configuration. 10s, 10s Max, 10R, all same storage configurations. They don't usually make higher storage configurations a pro feature, but, you know, they've also never released 4 new iPhones in 1 year, so it's not impossible. I won't say that it's completely out of the question, because if all 4 iPhones have OLED displays this year, and ProMotion on the Pro iPhones is a maybe, then perhaps 128 gigs by default would be a good motivator for people to spend the extra $250, because right now, a lot of the reasoning to go with a Pro iPhone over a iPhone 11 or a 10R is just the OLED display, you know? Liquid Retina doesn't have as much dynamic range, or it's as bright, or doesn't have those deeper blacks that the OLED iPhones have, so, you know, there's a $300 gap right there just to splurge on telephoto lens, bigger slash smaller display that's OLED. If all the iPhones have OLED, is LiDAR and a telephoto gonna be a good enough reason for people to splurge on that extra $250? That's what makes me hope ProMotion's coming to the Pro iPhones, but at the same time, yeah, maybe they could throw in 128 gigs, but if the prices are this low, don't expect 128 gigs on the regular 12 and 12 Max, or whatever they end up calling those non-Pro versions. The other thing you probably shouldn't expect if they're able to keep the iPhone that cheap and add all these features is fast charging. So we got it with the Pro iPhones. I think that's a given. We can expect the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. They're gonna still ship with USB-C to Lightning cables. USB-C is sadly out of the question at this point. Doesn't sound like Apple's doing it, but they will still ship with those 18-watt charge bricks, so you get fast charging when you spend $1,000 plus on an iPhone. But the regular 12s, the non-Pro models, I think we should expect to still ship with that same sucky tiny 5-watt charge brick and a USB-A port on it, and it's gonna feel so weird that they're still shipping USB-A to Lightning in a 2020 iPhone. But I'm sorry, it's just, if the prices are somehow able to stay this low, because look at all the phones that have come out in recent history that had 5G support. They always came with this giant price jump just because they were 5G capable, and we know because of the contract Apple's in with Qualcomm right now, all 4 iPhones coming out in the fall are gonna have 5G support. Some reports are claiming the Pros are gonna have millimeter wave 5G, and the regulars are gonna have sub 6 gigahertz 5G. If the prices stay this low though, I think it's reasonable to assume maybe all of them will have sub 6 gigahertz 5G, and none of them will get millimeter wave 5G, which honestly, I would be fine with, because I think 5G is kind of overhyped and over-exaggerated, and the millimeter wave 5G is so underutilized because there's so little places that can actually take advantage of 5G that's that fast. So just making them capable enough for, you know, broadband 5G like T-Mobile's, which is barely faster than LTE in the first place, that could help bring costs down. Maybe they don't have to buy the expensive modems from Qualcomm, and if Apple did that, I honestly would not be that upset, because again, I was expecting the Pro iPhones to get $100 more expensive this year, so if they're able to keep them at the same price they are now and give us the new design, new form factors, new screen sizes, smaller notch, thinner bezels, A14 chip, oh my god, all of that for the same price we're getting the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max for, I'd tip my non-existent hat off to Tim Cook if you're able to pull that off. Maybe they're bringing in enough revenue from wearables and services that they're able to take a cut in profit on the iPhone line a little bit, but yeah, if they actually end up shipping with 128 gigs by default, or fast charging for the whole lineup, and you can get ProMotion on the Pro iPhones at 120 hertz, like, I feel like Apple's gonna be losing a lot of money on these iPhones compared to previous years. I know that the sum of the parts is going to be under 500 bucks, but there's so much money that goes into the research and development and the software support that they give to the iPhones for over 5 to 6 years. How are they going to pull that off? And the other weird part is Apple going to keep around the iPhone XR or the iPhone 11 for sale once the 12 launches? You know, if the iPhone 12 lineup starts at 650 bucks and the iPhone 11 gets a price reduction of 100 bucks, that would mean iPhone 11 would be $600 and the iPhone 12 would be $650. So there'd only be a $50 price difference between the 12 lineup and the iPhone 11. I mean, the iPhone 11 wouldn't have much of an advantage in that case. So that's why I personally think it's still possible they'll keep the XR around, because it doesn't have night mode or a dual camera. So they'll leave that in the lineup at a lower starting price, but it'll be much cheaper to manufacture compared to the iPhone 12s. I guess though, if you keep around the XR, that would probably hurt some of the sales of the iPhone SE at 400 bucks, which is why I think they'll keep the XR around, but they will not lower the price. So the XR is priced at 600 bucks right now. I'm guessing it'll still be 600 bucks when the 12s come out. And because the 12 will have a dual camera and the iPhone XR will not, that will make more people feel like, oh, well, I should get the 12 because that has more camera features, that looks cooler, it looks cleaner, it's got the OLED display, it's more up-to-date design and things like that. So camera performance, we shouldn't expect much to change on the regular iPhone 12s. On the 12 Pro, probably a little bit between LiDAR and maybe some larger camera sensors and better low light performance on all 3 lenses. But either way, this lineup is going to be very, very competitive and very, very interesting if these prices end up being real. I don't think it hurts for all of us to remain skeptical and just go ahead and assume these prices could be wrong. They could be $50 more than we're originally expecting, because, you know, in the past, we thought we had the prices down and we were really wrong about it. So it's also just a happy surprise. If we expect these prices to be wrong and they end up being right, then we're like, okay, cool, it was cheaper than we thought. But if you guys get it in your heads that this is absolutely going to be the price, and if it's higher than this, you're going to get disappointed, well, you set yourself up for disappointment. So I say, hope for the best, but assume the worst when it comes to pricing this year. And may I also add, if these prices end up being right, Super Cycle, yeah, probably still gonna happen even with the pandemic, because so many people are on monthly installment plans and trading in their old iPhones anyway. So very fascinating stuff. I'm very curious, just from a business perspective, to see how Apple's gonna handle this thing. At the end of the day, I'm still buying the 12 Pro Max, even if it's $2,000. I don't care. I want that bigger screen. I'll take it, especially if it has 120 hertz. Please, Apple, you gotta stick the landing on this one. If you can't give me USB-C, at least give me promotion. That's all I'm asking. Anyway, let me know your guys' thoughts over on Twitter. Join my Discord and we can chat more about it there. Do you think these prices are reasonable, or do you think this is just too much wishful thinking? This is your Apple Sheep here, and I memorized all of the numbers in today's video, by the way. I think you should be impressed by that. I'll see you in the next one.